So President Trump signed the executive order to save college sports. And as expected, a lot of people are up in arms. There's a lot of people talking a lot of BS. A lot of people don't know what they're talking about. There's a lot of doom and gloom. I'm here to sort through all of that and explain it to you so it makes more sense. We'll talk about that next on the ProZone. Welcome to the ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So, President Trump signs his executive order, okay, to save college sports. Now, there's a lot of history here. I've been tracking this. If you guys have been keeping up, those who have been watching, I appreciate it. I've been doing this for years, so I've had my finger on the pulse of this. So let's talk about what's been going on. I could get deep into a history of it. I kind of do, but I kind of don't. So I'm going to start pretty simple. I'm going to start with the blowback, okay? All the crap that's going on right now. So Trump signs the executive order, and what he basically says is this order is going to set specific limits. Right, so what does the executive order say? So let's read it, okay, right from the text. It's kind of piecemeal-ish to a point in bullet form, but we'll read it. Talks about let's go right through it, like paragraph by paragraph. Big explanation of what's going on, purpose and policy of this. You go through all that. Then you go to the effective date as of August 1st of 2026. So it's going to be effective as of the upcoming collegiate year, fall of 2026. So that's when it starts. New semester, August 1st, new rules. Okay. Definitions. Skip all that. Now you go to Section 4. Section 4, protecting women's and Olympic sports and preserving higher education financial responsibility. I'm not going to go through all the details on it, but the basics of it is, if you listen to the president's roundtable at the White House back on March 6th, I did a live on that. It was a 3-hour show. You can go through and skim through parts of it, and I kind of break it all down. It's a lot of bluster and BS because this guy's just yammering back and forth. But for the most part, there is something in there. You can hear, if you listen to what the president's saying, and when he's listening to some other people, he kind of had his mind made up going in from feedback that he's gotten already. But what he wants to do is, the big concern of his was women's sports are getting decimated because of NIL and transfer portal. They just are, but predominantly NIL, because the NCAA House settlement requires teams to pay up to $20 million. They're allowed to pay up to $20 million for sports programs. Well, the problem is a lot of schools do not have $20 million, okay? So how do they get that money? Well, they get that money by pulling it away from other sports. So other sports, your lesser sports, your other than sports, we call them the other sports, tennis, golf, gymnastics, fencing, they lose money. And a lot of the teams that lose money are women's teams. Women's sports are losing a lot of money. And I think I do it myself. When I'm doing recruiting for athletes, I'm going through my comprehensive database of schools, and I'm going, holy crap. As I'm updating it, I'm going, well, this sport's gone from this school now, and that sport's gone from that school now, and this whole school is gone now. They don't have sports anymore because of NIL. So they're redirecting money. Well, don't schools have a whole lot of money, Matt? They have a lot of money, but not a whole lot of money to do what they're being ordered to pretty much do. So your schools are losing their ass, for lack of a better definition. They have to find a way to make the money. They're not rolling in dough. You understand, guys. Colleges are not uber wealthy. Yeah, they're paying coaches a lot of money. Okay, that's one of the reasons why they're hurting. Okay, but they have a overhead. They have a lot of upkeep, maintenance. There's a big bottom line that they have to meet in college sports, and they don't turn a massive profit. So that's why an issue of paying the kids was not their first choice. Giving them scholarships, yeah, you have enough money for athletic and then academic scholarships, which is what a lot of schools did. What they would do is they would give you a scholarship, and you said your athletic scholarship, and then what they would do is, how much money can you get academically? If you can get like $10,000 academically, and it's a $30,000 a year scholarship, guess what? I only have to give you $20,000 of my budget every year for athletic scholarships, and the rest of it can come from academics, and you're still covered. I'm still giving you a full ride or even a partial ride because your academics covers it. That's why they do that, because they're not swimming in dough. I'm not saying, oh, poor colleges. I'm just saying you don't see the nuts and bolts of it. And schools are not loaded. If they were loaded, this wouldn't be an issue. If schools were rolling in dough, they wouldn't be cutting other sports. Oh, they're just doing it because they don't like the sports. No. They want to keep those sports because when you have sports at a school, it draws more students. Students can come in there because they want to play the sport. If you don't have the sport, they're less inclined to come to your school, no matter how good you are academically. It's just nature of the game. Okay, so they don't want to cut women's sports. They don't want to cut lesser sports. They kind of have to do that, and they have no choice. I'm not sticking up for them. I'm just saying this is what they have to do. So that was a big concern of the president's. Also, what that does, those lesser sports or other sports, they are good for Olympics, Olympic preparation. People that do fencing, archery, golf, tennis, things like that, those are Olympic sports. Gymnastics, Olympic sports. And those Olympic sports, when you don't have a training ground for them, which is college, which is where we get those athletes from, don't let it fool you. Just because the 1992 Dream Team changed the way the basketball was done in the Olympics, and now you have all pros doing it, and now they're bringing all the pros into baseball too, and you're losing the college athletes from those events, which I highly disagree with. It's becoming just another extension of professional sports when the Olympics should actually be amateur sports. But other countries are putting in their pros. Okay? So if their pros are going in, then we answered and say, we're going to put our pros in. And it started with the 92 Dream Team. In 1992, since other teams were putting in their pros, they said, we're going to stack the deck. We're going to show you our best. And they put together a team that was the best team I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was sick crazy. It was amazing to watch them. I recorded every single Olympic, what's that called, trial game from that team. And of course, loaned the tape to my friend who then lost it. And that pisses me off. But it was awesome. But because of that, it now started a trend. So now you have every other Dream Team 2 and then another team after that and all these pros after pros after pros. And then hockey says, hey, we'll do it too. And then baseball says, hey, we'll do it too. And now NFL's trying to get in on the gig and going, hey, we can get involved with your flag football since that's becoming an Olympic sport. So you're killing the amateurism of the Olympics, and you're also killing the amateurism of college because you're making it all paid athletes. But if you lose the training ground for those athletes in college, you lose Olympic sports, and it hurts the development of our athletes. But if they're going to professional, then why would you need them? Because not all sports are professional. You don't have professional field hockey. You don't have, professional women's basketball, but you want to call it that, but you don't have professional lacrosse. You don't have professional gymnastics. You don't have those things. Those are archery, crap like that. You have golf, but there's not a lot of professional sports out there. So you have to maintain that. So you need that as a training ground. So that was a big concern for the president because he looks out over as a country and representation of the country, which it should be. Okay, so that's factual. He's looking about eligibility limits and transfers between institutions, revenue sharing permitted between higher education institutions and student athletes, permissible and improper financial activities. It says here, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, in consultation with the Administrator of General Services, shall issue guidance to contracting and grant-making agencies to ensure compliance with this order. So he's telling people what to do. So what are some of the rules? Well, we're looking at here, it says scholarships and collegiate athletic competition in women's Olympic sports. We're still talking about that. Ensure the financial stability of higher education institutions, including the by establishing the following to the extent permitted by all this legal stuff. Okay. Age-based eligibility limits to promote fairness, consistency, safety, and opportunities for student athletes, under which a participation in college athletics is permitted for no more than a 5-year period, with limited exceptions for military service, missionary service, and other periods of absence for participation that are in public interest. Okay. I have no problem with that. We don't need 26 and 27-year-old seniors or super seniors. We don't need to have guys who have been in college for 4 years and who are done with college. They've graduated. Now they're just hanging around and just there to play the sport. That's bullshit. You don't, you're not a pro sport. And guys, time to grow up and get out of college. I've said this before. This is another example of young people just wanting to stay home. No, staying home because you need to stay home. Okay. Your parents helping you out so you can get a job, get yourself a nest egg, build your wealth, your income. Fine. Get yourself started. No problem. Staying in college is akin to staying home because you don't want to leave the comfort of home. Right? Time to grow up. College is a stepping stone to get you out into the real world, not to stay there forever. But these guys are staying on, and these coaches are, see, I'm not blaming just the athletes. Coaches, you're complicit too. Everybody involved is complicit, including the legal people, including the freaking government people. They're all complicit. God, okay, I'm going to jump into that real quick to explain you how. How is everybody complicit? Okay. One, athletes, you just want to get paid. Before, I'm going to do a whole show on the rise and fall of nil, okay? I'm going to do a whole show breaking down that, but I'm going to touch on some points here. Athletes, you want to get paid. You wanted to get paid, and you bitched and complained, and other people complained too, until finally California wrote legislation that was nil legislation. And they said, hey, we're going to make it, if you're an athlete at a college in California, you're going to have to get paid. Okay. And nil was simply just sponsorship, just you representing a brand. You're sponsoring Gatorade, you're sponsoring Athleta, you're sponsoring Nike, whatever it is, you're sponsoring that product. And you're the face of the brand, and they're using your face to sell their brand. That's what it was supposed to be. But with everything, with every money-making venture, there's always somebody who's going to corrupt that venture. So you had California who started it, New Jersey passed a law right after that, and then like about 31 other states at first, that was a couple years ago, all had no legislation. Then it started to grow. Okay, now that's the athletes. The athletes were going to get paid, but then you had the people that are corrupting it. So now what's corrupting that? Now you have the friends of the program that are corrupting that. Who are the friends of the program? Boosters, fundraisers, donors. They create nil collectives. A nil collective was something that they would create as a 501c3, and people would put their money into the 501c3 as a charitable donation, which would then be given to the athletes to pay them to come to the school. And it's something as simple as, hey, we're going to run a football camp, and you're going to be the host of the football camp. So you just got to show up and appear, shake a few hands, and we'll put your name on it. And that's us paying you to run the football camp. And then we're going to pay you $100,000 a year or $1 million a year because of that. Now, we're paying you to play football. We're not paying you for the camp, but we have to pretend like we're paying you for the camp so we don't get in trouble. So it's 501c3. And that's what no collectives became. And there were a ton of them. And some still exist. Some were folded back into the programs after the NCAA settlement last year, but some of them still exist. Now, so there's your friends of the program boosters. They started to corrupt it. But then you have coaches who are going, wait a second now, if I can get players and I can pay them to be on my roster, and I can get the best players and then offer them a lot more money, and my no collective's giving me the money, then, hey man, I'm going to take advantage of this, so I'm going to do that. But let's step back. Between the start of nil, okay, and the start of the transfer portal really kicking in, that was a gray area. So the transfer portal kicks in. That was about 3 years ago, right? Kid wants to transfer more than once. Old rules were you transfer one time, and then and you have to sit out. Okay, so you only transfer once, and then you have to kind of sit out, and then you can play again. It's just so you don't steal people and then stack the deck on your team. You know, you're playing for Auburn, and then you go to Tennessee, and then right away they have you, and then you can play again. And you had to be approved to transfer. You had to go through your athletic director and your coach, and you had to get the okay, and you had to meet the requirements, and then you get to transfer. That guy sued. I want to transfer more than once. I want my way. It's not fair. And some lawyer, there's another person, another group who are getting nice and greedy, and they go, oh, hey, wait a second. If we can coerce these young people into suing, then what we can do is make a whole lot of money in legal fees, and or if we go pro se means that we're going to do the case for free, and then we get a percentage of what you make at the end. We could do it that way, right? Basically, your percentage of the settlement. And they usually take about 40% when they do a pro se. So it says, if we can sue, then we can make a lot of money Legal fees, settlement money, that's cool. And we could double as a nil agent if we really want to in some cases. And nil agents, while your regular sports agents, professional sports agents charge 4 or 5%, your nil sports agents, 20 to 30%. And they're making fat money off these young people. Okay, so young people are being told, hey, sue. And then the lawyers jump in and they sue. And they say, we're going to sue the NCAA because we want this kid to transfer more than once. And 2 other kids join on. So there's 3 kids and they're going to join on, sue to get to transfer as many times as possible. And 7 states' attorneys general jumped into the lawsuit. So your politicians, not only did they create the no legislation, but your politicians actually were getting involved because attorney generals are politicians. They got involved in the legal case for some reason. We said, why would you get involved? I've been saying this for 2 years. Why would a politician get involved unless it's going to benefit them in some way? And they got involved. So what do we have? Now we have politicians involved. They sue. They file an injunction against the NCAA. And the NCAA says, we don't want to let these kids transfer. The injunction says you have to stop everybody from transferring until we sort this out with these football players. And they said, well, we can't do that to all the other athletes. And the NCAA, who was grievously afraid of being sued, okay, and they told me that personally through NCAA Legal. I was talking to a rep there, and I asked him, he says, the NCAA is afraid of being sued. That's basically what it was. What it's always been, right? So they were afraid of getting sued. They said, okay, yep, no mas, we're good. Transfer as many times as you want. And the transfer portal was born. So take the transfer portal, people leaving every friggin' year from their school, okay, and apply that to no money being paid to kids to come to the school and coaches wanting to pay those kids to come to their team, and then coaches recruiting other kids away from other schools so they can stack the deck on their team so they can win and basically have a professional team. And there's other bunches. There's the morass that we're in right now, and there's other people that are making money. So we have coaches, we have politicians, we have lawyers, we have agents, we have boosters, okay, and we have athletes that are all making money from this. And that's where we stand. Well, with this legislation, people are pretty pissed off because the ones I find to be the most vocal are the lawyers, which should tell you everything you need to know, right? These blood-sucking lawyers, they're the ones who are the most vocal. This kid, you can't allow that. You can't only have 5 years. Well, let me stop and read some more of the limits that they want, the restrictions they want to put on this, okay? So we had a 5-year deal, 5 years. So you can't play too many times, right? You can't play more than 5 years. That's in the executive order. That's what they're proposing, right? Now, executive order is not a law. An executive order is a directive, but an executive order is designed for a reason. I'm going to get to that reason. So, back to the points. 5 years of eligibility, okay? And with the transfer portal, that happened. Players kept suing. Again, the lawyers that can make money, they kept suing. You had people who were suing to get another year of eligibility because one guy was this Chambliss, right? Trinidad Chambliss just recently sued because he had tonsillitis one year. It was his tonsils hurted him. Yeah, he sued because his tonsils hurt him. He wasn't out of sports for the whole year because of a tonsillitis, because of a sore freaking throat. He was out for a year because he was out for a year. He wanted just another year and use that as a medical excuse. So what they did, he got a lawyer who wants to make money, and he says, hey, we're going to sue so you can get another year of eligibility because God forbid you actually go into the real world or try to go to the pros, which you're not going to get drafted because you're not good enough. And most of these guys that are gleaming onto this damn nil money, they're not going to be able to get drafted in the pros. So they're trying to make their bank now. And I don't fault you for trying to make money. But guys, how about you be men for a second? Be some adults and stop trying to be, milk the system. I mean, the system's there to be milked, so, have at it, I guess. So, if they're going to let you milk it. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's just the way it is, but it has to be fixed. Okay, so, now I'm not on anyone's side. I'm not on the side of the coaches, because they're as complicit as the players are. I'm not on the side of the players, because you already know where I stand there. I mean, they're both, but don't, guys, there's guys online that play this stupid game, and they'll go, the coach can leave whenever he wants to leave, and the player can't leave, and that's just not fair. No. Coach can't just leave. The coach has a thing called an exit clause in his contract. If he decides to leave a team, retires, fires, quits, retires, or gets fired. Well, actually, it's if he quits and goes to another team. If a coach leaves his team and goes to another team, he has to pay an out clause, exit clause. $1 million, $750,000, something, whatever the clause was set up in the contract. Now, if he doesn't pay that, then the team taking him can pay that. So when DeBoer went from Washington to Alabama after Saban retired, most likely Alabama paid his exit clause from his contract because he still had some years left on his deal. Okay, but that's how that works. But there's coaches now that are being recruited away by other schools while they're still under contract with their current schools. And the problem you have there is the NCAA, in their brilliance, said, hey, here's what we'll do. We're going to allow, if a player is on a team and is recruited by a specific coach, and then that coach retires or quits or is fired, then we're going to open up another transfer portal window for 30 more days. Well, then you have a mass exodus. So when Nick Saban retired from Alabama, like 17 players left right away. Like the whole starting lineup was gone. They entered the portal. It doesn't mean they're totally gone. I mean, 20 to 30% only get off the portal. I think 8% get picked up by the team itself, and then the rest of them, they don't get a deal. So it's not a win-win, right? But by doing that, you decimate the team even further. They finally eliminated that. You could transfer one portal window. It was one portal window, and I think it was over 3. Okay, you had the portal window, the regular one, which started in like December. So you had teams getting down. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand how the NCAA was so freaking stupid. NCAA, how dumb were you to look at your transfer portal thing, realizing you didn't want to do it in the first place, but then you were forced to do it by a court injunction, right? And you said, okay, since we're going to do it, we're going to have a portal window in December before the bowl games so everybody can leave the team prior to a bowl game and go play for the other team in time for another bowl game, right? Plus, if a coach gets fired, quits, or retires, we're going to let the kids transfer for 30 more days, and we're going to have a spring transfer window too, to screw everything up even more. You gave them 3 transfer windows for football alone. How freaking stupid are you into the NCAA? I mean, that's just common freaking sense. A layperson like me who's not working for the NCAA can see that that's a recipe for failure. Any common Joe can say, that doesn't, why would you want to get rid of all your players 3 times a year, potentially? That's stupid. And guess what? Over time, they went, well, geez, maybe the coaching thing is a bad thing. Maybe we shouldn't let him leave when the coach leaves. You think? And then it's, well, maybe we shouldn't let him leave twice. Only have one transfer portal window in the fall. You think? Oh, and then you know what? Maybe we shouldn't allow them to transfer until after the bowl games. You think, you morons? But this is what got us where we are now. So now everything's been decimated. And because it's decimated, because everything's going into chaos mode, and I said it in my first show, episode 1, it was the wild, wild west. It was out of control. I saw it happening then. I called most of this then. Go back and watch it. I've been on the pulse of this from the beginning. Because of that, what happens? As things get out of control and no one can fix it, and the NCAA is inept, Charlie Baker is an absolute bureaucrat moron. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And I'll say it to his face. He's just playing the game. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing with this stuff. It's out of their control because they let the horse out of the barn and they left the doors open. Now they're trying to get him back in. Too late. It's too late. Horses are gone, right? So because of that, Now you have the politicians who chime in and they go, hey, wait a second, I can come up with legislation now. I can create, I can have legislation and I can create this and this will make me a hero. It'll make me look really good. You got people like Cory Booker from New Jersey, that genius, who's coming up with, he has his own legislation. I have a whole other show. I'm going to go over this versions of legislation, everyone trying to be a hero. You have the SCORE Act, which is drafted by a guy in Louisiana, and Jim Johnson, the Speaker of the House, he's co-sponsoring that with like a bunch of other politicians too. We'll save college sports. Then you have Tommy Tuberville comes in and says, I'm going to draft this legislation, and this is 5 years of this and that, and he has his thing. Everyone's got, there's like 4 or 5 different versions of legislation from these politicians who can't even run the country, let alone try to run college sports, right? So what do we have? After all of that, President Trump says, okay, look, this is ridiculous. First off, you have tons of legislation, nothing's going to get done, and no one's going to vote on it. It's just posturing to make themselves look good. You know, someone like Cory Booker, from the state that I'm in, clown, can sit there and say, see what when I'm running for, I'm working to save college sports because I care more than you do. And he uses his campaign thing. That's why they're doing it. They don't really care about saving college sports. They just want to save college sports, quote, quote, save college sports, because it makes them look good on their resume. That's the only reason they're doing it, okay? Let's not pretend like these people are saints because they're politicians. So President Trump steps in and he goes, all right, you know what? Look, you guys aren't doing this. We got the SCORE Act. There's parts of it I like. There's parts I don't like. I'm going to draft my own executive order. And he said it. He said it in the roundtable at the White House. He basically said that he was going to create the executive order to get sued. That was what he was going to do, all right? So before I dive into that, let me tip in some more of what he has in the executive order, okay? So we have 5 years of eligibility. Okay, that's pissing people off because the lawyers want to sue for more eligibility. Again, I'm still on this topic. I keep going back to it, and I apologize, but there's so much depth in what's been happening. I have shows on things that have been going on, like the one player who had 9 years of eligibility. 9 years. I got a whole show coming up about that. 9 years a student. It's going to be called 9 years. Yeah, with all the other guys who are like Tommy Boy, who've been in college for 7 years. Because they just want more and more. You have people like Diego Pavia, who sues so his JUCO time doesn't count. I was in JUCO. That shouldn't count against my eligibility. So I want to put my 5'9" ass on the football field and play. So he sues. They say, yeah, okay, because NCAA doesn't countersue, right? Back then now they're starting to countersue, but they weren't countersuing then. And they're like, no, we're gonna waive on that. We're gonna waive on that. And yeah, sure. And then the judge rules in his favor, and he gets another year of eligibility. Then he sued again to get another year of eligibility after his senior year, and that was dismissed. No, you can't do that. Then you had a bunch of other guys. I think it was like 8 guys or something from Arkansas that just sued, and their case was dismissed because, you know, they tried and they said, no, you're not going to get more eligibility because you were in JUCO. I mean, that's where we're looking at. So this 5-year thing, you get normal eligibility in college is 4 years and a red shirt. That's what you get. 4 years and 1 red shirt year. That's what it was. If you're a full-time college student, that's where your eligibility comes into play. Okay, if you're JUCO, well, if you're a full-time JUCO, then it counts against you. Okay, because you're actually taking classes, and those credits can transfer to college. So that's how they made it. But why can't JUCO just count? Because then you're going to have people who go to JUCO because what's going to happen is JUCO will become like a 2-year red shirt. You go to a JUCO for 2 years, right? Then you'll go to college for your 5 years, your 4 in a red shirt. So now you're looking at 7 years. And 7 years, you got a kid coming out of high school at 17, almost 18, okay? In 7 years, they're 24, almost 25. The difference between a 25-year-old and an 18 or even 20-year-old is night and day. They're absolutely different. So, that being said, they are setting up age limits as well in the legislation, okay? In the legislation, in the executive order. So let's circle back to that. item A was a 4-year, 5-year with immediate playing eligibility. Okay. Student obtains a 4-year degree. Fine. B, prioritize the academic development, success, graduation, and long-term well-being of student athletes. And you cannot do that if you're transferring every year. There's certain guys who had 6 years at 6 different teams. They transferred 6 different times. All right, to 6 different teams. Now, how are you, when you transfer, okay, I changed schools. I went from West Point to Ithaca College. Okay, West Point to Ithaca. I wanted to study production, so I went to Ithaca. Number 1 journalism school, number 2 journalism school in the country at the time. And I had to transfer in, then I had to try to get into the journalism program to get into communications, which is why I do what I do now. When I transferred from West Point, my credits did not transfer. Okay, I actually went to Drexel for a semester to build up specific credits to transfer those credits to get that transfer into Ithaca. Then I got to Ithaca and I had to step back. Well, I forced myself to step back. I didn't have to, but I chose to so I can go into the journalism school. And I took more courses because a lot of my credits didn't transfer. Every time you transfer from a school, all of your credits do not transfer. Every school has different prerequisites. Every school has different requirements. So if you're at school A and you go to school B, your school A credits, some come with you, some do not. So now you have to go backwards and get more credits. Now you're going to school B, then you say, I'm going to change from B to C. Well, guess what? You're leaving more credits behind at B, and you have to take more credits to get to C. Case in point, you never can get your graduate degree or your undergraduate degree because you're not transferring enough credits, and it hurts your ability. And these kids don't care. They don't care if they graduate. They just want to keep playing sports for 7 years of college, in some cases 9, so they can make money doing for no money. That's their job, and it's not a job. They keep insisting, these are not employees. We can't make these athletes are not employees. The coach is saying they're not employees. Yeah, because if you make them employees, and they're going to be forced to join a union, and the union people are going to pressure them, and you're going to be joining a union, you're going to join the union, and then they're going to strike right before a ball game or before an important game for you guys, and then you're going to be hamstrung because all your players are now on strike. And those players will start losing what? Eligibility, because they've been on strike for God knows how long. Just saying. That's why they don't want to be employees. But the students are acting like they're employees because they want to keep being paid all the time, year after year. And it's not a good situation to be in. Well, they're just innocent athletes. No, you're not just innocent athletes anymore. If you're a 17-year-old kid, you're figuring your way. For 18 years old, you're becoming an adult. You're 19, 20, you have more common sense. Yes? And let's put it this way. I like to say this. Alexander the Great ruled the kingdom at 13 years old. So no. You're a college student. You're not a kid. You're a young adult learning their way, but you know what you're doing. You do. Unless you're a moron, in which case you shouldn't be in college. All right, so let's move on. Prioritize academic development, did that already. Ensure the transfer window does not incentivize interference with athletic seasons or the academic year, or otherwise undermine the integrity of participation and competition of college athletes. Sure, they shouldn't be hitting the transfer window during the school year, during the athletic season. They shouldn't do that. They should wait till the season's over, then you have the window. It should be just like a summer transfer. If you're going to transfer, enter the portal, like scholarships. College scholarships, it was, they would decide every year by July, they'd have to decide whether they wanted to renew your scholarship. Because every scholarship, I got to give you a full ride. And it's not a 4-year deal. It's a full ride year by year. Okay, I tried to change that in a rules thing a couple of years ago to a 2-year window, but that was voted down by the member schools, which is most of the schools. So every year it was like, okay, is your first year of your 4 years. If you're performing academically well and athletically and you still have value, we're going to renew your scholarship. If not, we're going to let you go. We're not going to renew that. That had to be decided by July. Well, maybe you apply the same thing. By the end of the school year, May, June, the portal window's open, and then you can transfer to other teams. They can pluck you out of there before summer ball, okay, before preseason. That should be the window. You're no longer in school. You finished your year of school. Now you met all your requirements. Now if you want to transfer, you can transfer. That makes sense. That does make more sense. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it says. It doesn't specify a window in there, but it does say transfer window does not incentivize interference with athletic seasons or the academic year. So I'm assuming that might be it, but they don't have a timeline on that. Medical care for student athletes for intercollegiate athletics related injuries during their period of enrollment for a reasonable period of time thereafter. So you get a window of time after. That's the same thing. That's in the SCORE Act. That's actually in the SCORE Act as well. I'm just reading the SCORE Act. That's a lot of legal crap, but I'm reading the SCORE Act as it is. The SCORE Act is a little bit more vague because now if I'm a student, they're like, oh, well, if you're a student athlete and then you get injured playing the sport, then you'll get medical coverage or counseling for sports psychology or whatever it is, but then you can get it for a couple years after you graduate, which is like, well, now if I'm a regular student, I'm going to go, oh, wait a second. How come they're getting this, but I'm not getting this? How come I have a scholarship here to go to school for academics, but I don't get medical assistance or help after I graduate? I don't get counseling while I'm a student. That's a problem. And I have a whole thing about the SCORE Act that I was working on, but this came in first. So implementation of revenue sharing between higher education institutions and student athletes in a manner that preserves or expands scholarships and collegiate athletic opportunities in women's sports. Okay, it's fine. Prohibition of the use of federal funds by higher educational institutions or nil, name, image, and likeness, or revenue sharing payments or coaching or athletic compensation in accordance with any applicable federal law and federal contract terms. They can't use federal funds for nil. For coaches, any of that stuff. Fair enough. Federal funds are for the academic side of the school. Prohibition on improper financial and the reason that's in there most likely is because some schools are using federal money for nil. They're short on cash, so they're doing that. Mark my words. Prohibition on improper financial activities regarding student athletes, including collectives, other entities, or methods used to facilitate third-party pay-for-play payments. Like I said before, nil became pay for play. What was illegal for years. So they're trying to say you can't use that nil for pay for play. You can't. You shouldn't be able to. Nil should be sponsorship of a brand. Okay? You're the face of a brand. They're using you. That's what it should be. Period. A national student athlete agent registry and reasonable protections for student athletes from excessive agent commissions. I have no problem with that. Excessive agent commissions. I just said your nil agents are charging 20 to 30%. Some of these kids are getting fleeced. Also, you have to have a registry. You have agents who are not registered. You have parents or uncles of a kid who says, I'm going to be your nil agent. So the uncle can get a whole ton of money. And then that uncle gets the money off the kid and they negotiate the deal and they trust him because they're family, but they have to be a registered agent. In the state of New Jersey, you have to be a registered agent. In other states, you have to be a registered agent. But not all states have the same rules. So I agree with that. Okay. To aid contracting and grant making agencies compliance with subsection of the section, we skim that over. Rules. Okay, fine. Secretary of Education shall consider. Got it. So Secretary of Education oversees some of the stuff based off this. Total number of roster spots by varsity team as a day of the first scheduled contest for team. So it says here, the Secretary of Education shall consider taking appropriate action, including through rulemaking where necessary to require regular reporting by higher education institutions that include the total number of roster spots by varsity team as of the day of the first scheduled contest of the team, and the total amount of money spent on athletically related student aid or other payments separately for men's and women's teams overall. So basically to manage this and oversee it, the Secretary of Education, it falls in their purview, their window, and they say, okay, we're going to be monitoring, make sure you guys are abiding by the rules, basically. Now, mark my words, this is not enforceable by law. However, we'll get to that, trust me. Chairman of the Federal Trade Commission shall take appropriate action to enforce the law with respect to violations by student-athlete agents. Okay, so this is as it should be. Federal Trade Commission, they should be in charge of the agents, make sure that they're legit. You shouldn't be charging 20, 30% to a kid or a young athlete or a young person or anybody for that matter. 3 to 5%, that's more than enough, especially on $1 million deal. What's that? What's 5% of $1 million deal? 10% is what? $100,000, right? Is that right? 10%? $1 million? Yeah, $100,000. That's 10%. 1% is $10,000. You're making $50,000 off of a contract. That's more than enough. You don't need to make, what's that, 40%, which is almost half the deal. $1 million deal, you're making $400,000. That's bullshit. That's criminal. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Okay, legal actions to invalidate certain state laws. Now. The Attorney General shall take appropriate measures to further meritorious action to invalidate state laws that conflict with interstate intercollegiate athletic governing body rules. Oh, there are so many laws, and they're all different from state to state. You know, in some states, so you started off with just nil, right? And believe it or not, when I read over the nil legislation when it first was passed, say what you want about them, California and New Jersey had the best nil legislation. Most comprehensive. And it didn't involve nil collectives and crap. It was very specific and it protected the kids a lot. So it was actually good legislation. It was well written. Pains me to say that, but it's the truth. Because both of the states are a hot mess. But other states came in. And then you had other states with different rules. Like in Tennessee, they started off by saying, well, they're the first ones to say you can actually a high schooler can enter into nil agreement. You have Mississippi who just came down and said, hey, you know what? We're going to pass legislation now that allows your nil money to be tax-free. You don't have to pay taxes on that. Everyone else has to pay tax on that, but you don't have to pay tax on that if you're an athlete. So every state's got different rules, and they're circumventing the rules, and they're corrupting the whole concept. They're just molding it in something that it's like a Frankenstein monster of garbage, okay, through legislation. So this is going to nullify all of that. That's what this is supposed to do. Where I lost my place. Okay, impair a contractual relationship in violation of Article 1. So this is legal actions. Attorney General shall take appropriate actions to invalidate state laws, discriminate against out-of-state commerce, or unduly burden or impede interstate commerce in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 of the Constitution of the United States. That's Commerce Clause. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And some of the laws do violate the Commerce Clause. You go from one state to another state, and they're going to allow those rules to apply over. You can't do that. You can't set a law here and then have it carry over here. So basically, if you want to look at it in specific terms, the Commerce Clause is pretty simple. If I'm an athlete over here and I'm getting paid $1 million, and I come over here and they're going to pay me more, but their rules say you can't, is that a violation of the Commerce Clause? Well, probably, but they're going to try to break them because they want that athlete. Impair a contractual relationship with a violation. Okay, fine. Relevant White House consultation. Any provision of this order, the application or any provision is held to be invalid. And then that's it. So basically what we're looking at is they're limiting interstate commerce issues. They're trying to eliminate this executive order. Eliminates all of the other legislation from states to make it a federal thing. Okay, so the federal supersedes state. It just does. Okay, and then they're giving you 5 years. That's what they're doing, and they're making you register your agents to with the Federal Trade Commission, so they're actual agents and licensed. They're not just people, and they have limits to the amount of money they get. Cool. Is it pretty simple? Yeah, it's pretty simple. Here's what's going to happen, though. There are people out there losing their minds. Okay, they're reading this and they don't understand the whole purpose behind it. The purpose behind it is President Trump wants to be sued for this. He wants to be sued, which would make the lawyers happy because they love to sue. The lawyers love to make their money, and this is a cash cow for them. Name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, suing to violate the NCAA regulations, all the time. Cash cow for them. They love it. And the ones who are the most pissed off online are the lawyers. The bloodsuckers are the most pissed off online, and I love it. I relish in watching them squirm because I'm calling them out on their BS. It's a bunch of crap, okay? Then there's other people who are pissed off about this because they're just the people who just hate Trump. Just hate Trump. You got a lot of the media who just hate him. They hate him for just because he's Trump. They just hate him. So you got guys who would open their mouths and go, this is ridiculous. Yeah, I know. And Trump could cure cancer, and literally they would be pissed off and they'd say, you're causing overpopulation. I mean, that's how crazy those people are. It shouldn't matter. But to them it does because it's I don't know. For some reason they got Trump on the brain. I don't get it. So this thing here, again, it's designed for Trump to be sued. Here, let's play the clip from Trump talking about this nil legislation. Here, let's play what he said Let's hear this.
And I'd like to sign an executive order that I'll write myself based on common sense. And we will be sued and we'll go before a court. And maybe we'll have a judge that's realistic, reasonable, and wants to do a favor for the country, because that's the only way this is going to be solved. So I'm going to write an executive order, and the executive order is going to be based on great common sense, and it's going to let colleges survive and players survive and let a lot of people be very, very happy. And let's see if we can get it through the court system, which we might not be able to do, in which case I guess we'll have to meet again, and we'll probably be through the same system. Look.
All right, let's pause there. Okay, so that was a clip from episode 23 of the ProZone Show, right? And I responded to that, okay? And I'm going to respond to it again. He said, I want to be sued, right? I'm going to be sued. I'm going to be sued, and hopefully we find a judge that's favorable. So what does that mean? Here's what it means. For all you dopes out there, I'm not talking to general people, the regular, the normies out there. I'm talking about the sports people, the lawyers, the sports reporters who don't do their freaking reporting, the agents, right? The people who just hate Trump just to hate Trump. All right. This is what it means. He creates an executive order. It has basic tenets in there from the SCORE Act, because, again, some of that stuff is from the SCORE Act, and some other things. And basically he had that roundtable meeting. He met with Saban. He met with all these other people, and they gave him feedback of what should be in the executive order. He took that, crafted his own executive order. Now he's going to put it out there. Everyone's up in arms, and automatically, and I love it, like clockwork, because he called it. Oh, he's going to get sued, and we're going to sue him. Like, cool. That's exactly what he wants, guys. He wants you to sue him. He expects you to sue him. Why? Because once it goes to a judge, a few things can happen. One, the judge can look at it and go, there's nothing unconstitutional in this. It's completely fine. In which case, then the rule in his favor, then there could be an appeal filed, and then it goes up to a circuit court. And the circuit court could say, it's fine. Then appeal could be followed. It goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could say, it's fine. If that happens, if it's fine, and it's a good order, right, then the precedent's been set. And what's in that executive order is now been through the courts and been blessed off on by the courts. And now the politicians can say, oh, well, it's not going to get knocked down in Supreme Court, and we've already passed that hurdle through the executive order, so we're going to use the same language or similar language, and we're going to craft our legislation for a national resolution for college sports. That's the plan. But what if a judge rules against them, which is most likely going to happen? Say if the whole thing is nullified, well, let's say part of it's good. This part's good. I agree with the 5-year thing. I agree with the agent registry, or I agree with the agent registry, and I agree with the college education thing and the non-transfer, but I don't agree with the non-transfer window, and I don't agree with the 5-year eligibility. I don't agree with that. Right? And they may say, oh, the Sherman Antitrust Act. This is what these lawyers love, the Sherman Antitrust Act. The Sherman Antitrust Act was meant for factory workers, not for college students. It doesn't apply to them, but they perverted that for their own benefit, and that's been their litmus test for everything. We're going to use the Sherman Antitrust Act, which really doesn't apply, but precedent has been set, okay? So they're using that all the time now. But if you really dig deep into it, it doesn't really apply. I talked about that in an earlier episode of the ProZone Show as well. I think it's episode 2, maybe. So if they rule on 2 things, but 2 things they don't, like, okay, women's sports good, but this is bad, well, the 2 things that are bad goes back to who? President Trump. He gets together with his people and says, okay, let's craft a new executive order and let's change the wording of those 2 things. Then they change the wording and then they resubmit the executive order. Then it goes against, they get sued again. Then it goes for a judge and he goes, well, those stay the same. They're fine. They change those 2. Okay. And that's, just keep writing new executive orders until they get what they want. Don't you understand? This is what's happening. So sue them because that's what they want, guys. It's just, that's just how it is. Now, if a judge says all of it's wrong, guess what? They have other executive orders in the hopper. You know they have different versions. If not A, then B. If not B, then C. That's what's going to happen. They know it's going to happen. They have it set up just in case. And that's what they're going to do. But what they're going to do, like if you ever read Trump's Art of the Deal, which I read that a long time ago, he always asks for everything he wants. When you're going to make a deal, this is good advice, really, whether you like him or not. If you ask for everything that you want up front, the highest amount you can, and if they say no, you settle for a little bit less, but you're still getting more than you really wanted. I wanted you to give me $1,000. I'm asking you for $1 million. Oh, I'm not giving you $1 million. Well, what can you do? I'll give you $250,000. That's more than I wanted. How about 500? And then you negotiate. Well, guess what? You end up with like 350 grand. That's a hell of a lot more than the $1,000 that you wanted. That's what they're doing with this. They're going to ask for a hell of a lot more, and then they're going to scale it back and then find a happy medium. Then that's going to become the legislation, and there's going to be national legislation. It's going to happen because you states got greedy. You coaches got greedy. You athletes got greedy. Your lawyers, you agents, you all got freaking greedy. And because you got greedy, you screwed up the whole thing. But the one thing that everybody, they don't even acknowledge it in the executive order, and I've already have calls into elected officials to try to discuss this to no avail, but I'm going to do a letter writing campaign on that one and see if I can get someone to listen. The one thing they're omitting is high school sports. Folks, this executive order, making it 5 years of eligibility, limiting transfers, saving specific sports, that's very good for high school athletes. High school athletes, I've been recruiting high school athletes, doing marketing for them for 24 years, okay? They're getting destroyed. Like I have to go to a kid who says, I want to go play D1. I'm going to tell him, said, unless you're a ranked player, you're not going to go D1 because you're going to go to the portal anyway. The college coaches at Division I, they go portal first. It's portal, re-recruiting their own players, portal, JUCO prep is third, high school is a low fourth. Why would you take an inexperienced 18-year-old who's going to leave in a year anyway? Well, you can just take another kid who's got more experience in college. He's more mature in college. He's more athletically fit. He's more mentally stable. He's learned how to handle the curriculum. They cost less money because they've already spent money on 2 years, so you can get them for a 2-year deal, which is why they allowed partial scholarships in the NCAA settlement, so you can have 1 and 2 year deals for transfers. So high schools are getting killed. High schoolers are getting killed by this. They used to be able to get deals and be developed over a 4-year window. They're not developed anymore. The coaches don't want to take chances with them. They just don't want to recruit them anymore. But they're still holding their football camps. I got a show coming up on that. They're still holding all their freaking football camps, though, aren't they? You Division I schools, money grabbing these kids. You're not going to recruit them. So why are you having a camp? The camps were designed so we can see you up close and personal. So you can get a deal with us, but you wouldn't get a deal anyway because it was designed for the 4 or 5 kids that you wanted to see that you were really recruiting, but you couldn't bring them out there because it was against the law, the NCAA rules. So you would bring them out to your camp as a special invite and then open the camp up to everybody else too. And they'd all have to pay to go there. And you'd spend all your time focusing on those 4 or 5 kids, but the whole rest of the group didn't matter. They were just there. They might get a platitude or like, oh, you're looking good. Oh, yeah, you look good. The most I got, I went to a Penn State football camp for 3 days between my junior and senior year of high school. The most I got from that was I was doing a high knee drill and a coach comes up to me and he goes, you're going to play ball somewhere. That's all he said. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to give you a deal or you're going to play ball for me. He just said, you're going to play ball somewhere. I did, but it wasn't from them. It wasn't because of the camp. So yeah, they're still holding those freaking camps. Oh yeah, I got a show on that. So high schoolers are getting smoked right now. They're losing so many opportunities and they have to languish. They end up going to Division III or Division II, which in some cases it's better because they're not going to go pro anyway. But now you have college coach or high school athletes who are going, well, maybe I should just set my bar a little lower. Well, that's a bunch of crap. If you have the ability to play Division I, let's be realistic. I'll see a kid and I'll say, look, I want to go D1. I said, you're not D1. I'll just tell them you're not D1. I know you're not D1. I work with enough kids. You're a 2-3 kid, you're a 3 kid, whatever you are. Maybe 1 AA, but you're not Division 1. And it hurts to say it, but it has to be said, okay? Hurts to hear it, okay? But why are you stopping these kids from aspiring for the best that they can get? Because you are greedy and just want an easy, quick win. So you want to pay athletes to go there that are already 24, 25 years old. And potential pros, which is something else this executive order, I didn't see it there when I skimmed it, but it stops people from leaving the pros and entering college. You have that happening now. A guy played for the freaking USFL in the Canadian Football League. He's back in college. I think it's in Oregon somewhere. You have another guy who played for the NBA. He's back in college. That's bullshit. Once you're a pro, you're a pro. That's it. I don't care what pro it is. USFL, pro league. Canadian football, pro league. But these teams are doing it. They're bringing European players over who are pros in Europe, but they're bringing them to the United States, and they're putting them in college, and they're recruiting them. See? It's all screwed up. So it has to be, well, the government doesn't need to. The government created this. Your states created this, and you were complicit in the whole thing. So now, Big Daddy federal government, I told you, I warned you years ago it was going to happen. You keep screwing around with this, and the federal government's going to get involved, and it's never a good thing when they do, but you didn't listen. And now it's happening. And now you're all pissed off because there's an executive order. It's going to lead to legislation, folks. It's going to become a national law, and it's going to stop everything because you put your hand in the cookie jar and you couldn't take it the freak out. Oh, yeah, does it piss me off? Yes, it pisses me off. You know why? Because I work with young athletes all the time, and they don't get opportunities anymore. They just don't. Because you don't want to work. You don't want to train them. You don't do, not all coaches, but the vast majority of you do, especially your Power 4 schools. You know, what should happen to the Power 4 schools? You guys should just break away. Literally, like a bunch of millionaires should get together. Billionaires like Elon Musk, right? Pool all your money. Take $2 billion pooled among all these big investors. Go to about, 20 schools. Tell each school, we're going to give you $100 million for your program. Take the football programs away from the school. Now, they're still students, but they become independent football programs. The schools won't care because they're getting the money, okay? Then you take them and you say, we have you under our league, right? If it's Elon Musk, we'll call it the X College Football League, all right? They take that new college football league, then they go to the networks and they say, hey, we have the best Texas A&M, we have Florida State, we have University of Miami, we got whoever, all the best team, Michigan, we got all the best ones, okay? We want a contract with you guys for TV. You pay us $5 billion or whatever it is, and we'll give you a contract. And guess what? They're getting paid $5 billion. They get exclusive rights to have all those teams playing on those networks or that particular network. So Amazon, Netflix, Fox News, or Fox Sports, they bid, they get all the games. So all the big games, all the guys who are going to go pro and get drafted, they're the ones that get this show on exclusively on that network. And the investors make a lot of money. They made $5 billion off that deal. And they take that money, they get an ROI, a return on their investment, and they take whatever money they have left over or more money they want to reinvest, and they bring in more teams. That could happen. SEC, Power 4 schools, you may as well do it. You don't fall under the NCAA regulations. You don't listen to the no-go software when it recommends. In a lot of cases, you ignore it when you need to pay an athlete what you want to pay that athlete. So why not just split? Because you're not recruiting high schoolers like you used to. Yes, you used to give a shit, but you don't anymore, and it's wrong. So politicians need to address that, because this will help, though. If something like this, if legislation from this gets passed, it will help. So all you guys that are, all your lawyers, all you sports reporters, sports agents are crying about this. I just spelled it out for you. It is what it is. Okay, they want you to sue. Trump wants you to sue, so it can become precedent, and then become a legislation. It's going to happen. It's a matter of when. So there you have it. All right. So that pretty much sums it up. I will be checking back in with more information on this because it's a lot and it's always changing, which is interesting for me. If you have any questions, let me know. Comments, feel free to respond. Thank you for listening this long. I'm Matt Roberts. Thank you for watching the ProZone. Know your goal. Hey guys, thank you for watching the ProZone. Make sure you check back for more episodes. And if you haven't done so already, like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we have coming up next.